Welcome everybody to this webinar jointly organized by the Next Generation Committee and the Legal Practice Committee on legal professionals working from home due to COVID-19. The new normal, ? This is indeed the question we're going to ask today. My name is Julie Raneda. I'm a partner with Shalenba Wittmer in Singapore, and I'm a vice chair of the Next Generation Committee. My co-moderator from the Legal Practice Committee needs no introduction. This is Mark Landes, Special Counsel with Tom Kingswake in New Zealand. Before we get started, we have the privilege to have the IPBA President, Mr. Jack Lee, who would like to say a few words of introduction. Jack, over to you.
Thank you. My dear brothers and sisters, dear distinguished guests, I'm very glad to have this opportunity on behalf of IPBA to thank all of you to join our IPBA webinar at this special moment. COVID-19 virus has been spreading out around the world, but the virus cannot stop our activities for communication. Today, our topic is legal professionals working at home due to COVID-19, the new normal. The moderators are my New Zealand friends, Mark and Julia. The speakers are Annie, Daniel, Arya, and Harato. We all know the COVID-19 brings plenty of efforts for our global commercial lawyers. I was working at home for our clients in the early past 2 months. However, through our tireless efforts, the whole world has already controlled the spreading of COVID-19, and the world trade has revived sharply. For instance, China International Fair for Trade in Service held in Beijing earlier this month. The conference attracted thousands of companies from all over the world. And the third China International Import Expo will be held in Shanghai later this year. Hence, I believe the whole world will back on track very quickly. Next April, Shanghai will host IPBA's 30th annual meeting conference at the bend of Huangpu River from April 18 to April 21st. We are looking forward to meeting with all of you in Shanghai. Wish the webinar today a great success. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jack, for joining this webinar. And we've had the excitement of looking forward to Shanghai for a year and a half now. We'll be very excited when we all get there. Just to introduce the topic, obviously Julie from Singapore and Jack have done that. I guess working from home in casual clothes without a commute was something of a dream for many people, but not many people were doing it. But now almost all of us and many people around the world have been doing that for quite a while. And for some, it's still a dream come true. For others, it's potentially a nightmare. And whichever end of the scale it is, there's certainly plenty of challenges and issues that have arisen that need serious thought if we are to continue running our law firms and the responsibilities that we take on in a new environment, whatever that looks like. What sort of issues? Confidentiality of information when people are working from home. What sort of additional skills do we need? How do we maintain balance? Most people I know are working harder by working from home. Maybe they think they're living at work. What new tech solutions do we need to help with this? Have client expectations kept up with the challenges that we are facing? Obviously, virtual court hearings is something that's all around the world. How do we maintain and enhance productivity and yet keep our sanity? And I guess in-house lawyers, how's all this affecting them? So we've got some fantastic panelists to share their experiences from around the world. I mean, what a privilege to be hearing from people in France, Korea, India, and Japan, all in one webinar. It's one of the excitements of being involved with IPBA. The webinar will go for about 1.25 hours, and we've got various phases. There is a Q&A phase towards the end, so there is a Q&A function on your Zoom, so please put in some questions. We won't probably be able to address them all, but we will pick out some interesting ones. And that's the introduction, and over to Julie.
Thank you, Mark. There's just one point I'd like to add to this introduction. So we would like this webinar to be not just 1 hour discussion on the topic. Rather, the idea is with this webinar to initiate today a more in-depth discussion within the IPBA about good practices for remote working in the legal profession, and to create possibly a working group to come up with guidelines. So the Next Generation Committee would be happy to take the lead on this initiative together with the Legal Practice Committee. I'm speaking under the control of Mark here. So we invite really you all participants to join us in these initiatives and to reach out to us after the webinar, either myself or Mark or any of the chairs of our committees. Just if you want to manifest your interest in taking an active part in this initiative. And I have to make a full disclosure that this is Anne's idea, and we think it's a really good one, and we hope to endorse it. So moving to ahead, I'd like to introduce the speakers in no specific order. First, Mr. Hiroto Inoue. Hiroto is a partner at Nagashima Ono and Tsunematsu, one of the largest law firms in Japan. He's the chairman of the Information Management Committee in the firm, which is in charge of the IT matters in the firm. And during the COVID-19 crisis, he was at the front line in the transition of the firm from the old style working in the office to the new situation where we all work from home. So we look forward to an interesting input from Hiroto. Our second speaker is Daniel Teriyaki. Daniel practices in Yulshan LLC's corporate and finance practice. Daniel heads the firm's Asia practice team and is engaged in the firm's insurance and mobility team. He has extensive experience in representing corporations, private equity funds, and financial institutions in a broad range of cross-border transactions, disputes, and other matters. Of notice, Daniel studied in the US and is licensed to practice in New York. Our third speaker is Arya Tripati. Arya is a principal associate at PCA, a full-service Indian law firm. She's got extensive experience in general corporate governance, M&A, employment and labor, and data protection laws. Arya heads the firm's pro bono practice, and during the pandemic, she has worked closely with clients navigating through nationwide lockdowns, structuring risk mitigation and cost efficiency measures. And among others, she worked with a privacy think tank in devising the privacy framework for the Indian government's contact tracing application. Last but not least, our last speaker is Anne Durez, who is the former chair of the Next Generation Committee. Anne is a French senior corporate counsel, compliance and ethics officer in an international energy company. She also chairs the Association of Women Lawyers and Corporate Counsel named Women in Law, Women of Exception, which aims at promoting ethics, women's leadership, and a better gender balanced governance in corporation and the public sectors. So with no further introduction, I'd like to start by inviting all speakers to share their experiences with remote working in the past months and to explain the situation in their respective jurisdiction. Maybe Daniel, you'd like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Yi. I am with Yulchon LLC, law firm based in Seoul, Korea. I would like to discuss briefly about how we have been coping as a firm with the COVID-19 pandemic. Steps that we have taken in Korea in response to COVID-19 probably were not as drastic as in some of the other countries which were more heavily affected by the virus. In Korea, we have not experienced a nationwide lockdown or suspension of a broad range of business activities, although traveling into Korea has been difficult, as in other countries, because of the 2-week quarantine period for any person who enters into Korea from a foreign country, unless you can evidence that there is a justifiable urgent business need. We have seen, however, some modest measures that were taken. For example, the courts have suspended hearings for a few weeks. We have seen government officials taking turns to work from home. And these modest steps that have been taken by the court and the government and similarly private companies have resulted in delays in resolving disputes, dealing with matters which require close consultation with government officials, and business activities in general. Activities of a law firm itself, have not been substantially affected as of yet by COVID-19. However, we do remain highly cautious because our day-to-day, law firm activities could be significantly affected at any time by an infection. So in response to COVID-19, Yulchon's main goal as a law firm has been to prevent the possibility of our operations from being interrupted for an extended period of time. So we have taken certain measures to cope with the situation. Number one being encouraging our lawyers and other professionals to work from home. Number two, making sure that our staff members who may be more essential to keep us being operational to take turns and work from home. So for example, one half of our staff members would come into the office for 3 days a week, while the other half would remain at home and work remotely. We have also suspended all non-essential face-to-face meetings, including client meetings and seminars. We have suspended all non-essential business trips. We have also, required all members who, return from overseas vacations or business trips to, mandatorily work remotely for, 2 weeks or so. And lastly, we do encourage each member who comes into the office to eat by himself or herself. This last key measure has been the most unpopular measure at the firm, and this was not easy to implement in practice. At a typical Korean law firm, we love having meals together with colleagues. This is an extended break from work over lunches and dinners held on a regular basis. This break has traditionally been an important opportunity for us to network internally, get to know each other, share ideas, and ask questions. So this is one of the visible measures that we have taken in response to COVID-19, and it has made our lives a bit more dull and drier. our members have been allowed to work remotely even before the COVID-19 pandemic, as in, I think, other law firms and companies alike. This is a result of the increasing demand from our members to improve their work life balance. And thus, these measures that we have taken are not something that is totally new to us. However, the notable difference between now, I guess, and then is that we're seeing more and more of our members, particularly those who live with young children or who live with older family members, are working remotely on a more frequent basis and a more extended basis. In this changed environment, our observation is that the performance of our members are continuing to be highly satisfactory. So this has been true, particularly where the work is of a nature which can be done alone. For example, drafting a court brief or drafting an M&A agreement. Using the various technologies that are currently available, including this Zoom video conferencing system, as well as the virtual office software, our members have been able to work remotely and collaborate with each other. We have also been able to effectively hold client meetings, negotiation sessions, and webinars. So in sum, the fact that more members of the firm are working remotely from home did not seem to make a big difference in terms of allowing us to get the work done for our clients.
Thank you, Daniel, very much for the very good overview of the situation in Korea in your firm, and I'm sure we'll learn more about this later on in the discussions. I'd like to move now from Korea to India with Arya. Can you tell us about the situation in your jurisdiction? You're on mute, Arya.
Hi, everybody, and I hope that all the attendees are keeping safe. And I cannot tell you how important it has become that I make sure that in every email, the first change that has happened is even before I talk about business, I am dropping in a line to ensure that everybody is doing perfectly safe and sound. And it's just not something that I feel for Indians, it has been a drastic change. India is a country with 1.3 billion people, and this is the first time, at least I am 33 years and I have never seen anything of the magnitude as COVID-19. I have never realized how essential it is to have fundamental rights, if I may say so, at a very granular level. The sheer fact that our country went on a complete lockdown from March 15th, and it is only now, just a few weeks back, that we have started unlocking ourselves. But the mobility has been one of the significant issues in terms of every walk of life, be it professional and personal. And this actually made all of us to really take a leap of faith, if I may say so. Whether we are equipped or not, that's a different thing. Whether we are trained or not, that's a different thing. But we all had to take a leap of faith to just move from reality or real life to a virtual life. I wouldn't really go on how we have managed to cope around it, but I really think one of the most significant changes that legal profession and practice as a whole in India has witnessed is how court hearings and arbitrations have been conducted. Essentially, India is largely adversarial. We are a common law jurisdiction and we have prolonged court battles, fact-specific, evidence-specific. And if I may say so, I don't mean to be defaming anyone here, but an Indian court is real theater to go and witness, because court decorum may not be the best thing. It is as such very difficult for people to really stand in a court in a very humid country and convince the judge about the merits in fact and law. But a good respite has been that court hearings have gone virtual. It would have never happened if it were not for COVID-19. And sometimes I think it has a lot of advantages and it has a lot of disadvantages as well. The first thing that I would like to talk, because I, as a lawyer, I'm on the other side, I will talk about the bar a little later, but about the bar and the bench bifurcation, I think both have to really gear up to this new normal, that is virtual court hearings. So in India, typically a process, you take bulky documents, submit it into the court, file them, and then rely on your oral arguments, on your court craftsmanship to get the attention of the judge, to convince them about what the facts are and how the judgment has to be rendered. All of this has gone a drastic change. First and foremost, now you can't file bulky documents. You have a size limitation because you're reliant on a e-filing sort of a platform, which means essentially lawyers have to be now drafting more pithy and succinct arguments so that they do not exceed file size. This is just on a very technical scale, but the trickling down effect of it has been that now lawyers have to really, really make sure that only relevant arguments, relevant fact, and relevant evidence is included in their filings. Number two would be the craftsmanship part. So this is a very good example, like everything is coordinated and people are speaking on their turn, but that is not how a virtual court hearing in India looks like. Somebody is logging in from a phone, somebody is using a system, somebody is using bandwidth of different wavelength, and as a result of which there's a lot of chaos. The net outcome of that is that the hearing ability, the effectiveness of oral hearing has been limited to a large extent. And this highlights the lack of, number one, infrastructure. Number two, a lack of adequate training. And thankfully, all of this is gradually improving. The third thing has been that there are multiple platforms that are being used. People use Zoom, Cisco, Microsoft, and even if I may say so, they use Google Hangout. Mediations are happening with Google Hangouts. And that may not be the safest tech safest or secure platform to actually resort to if the matter has to deal with something that is sensitive or commercially or price sensitive information is involved. Also, the trickle-down effect has been that the court dockets have exploded because the court has been taking up matters with only urgency basis. So a lot of matters get dismissed on the count of the fact that it is not urgent in the opinion of the court. With all of this, I think law firms have had challenges, lawyers have had challenges, and this has actually elevated to the status of a survival debate. So there are independent practitioners, there are lawyers who may not be part of bigger organizations or are not very, are dependent on actually meeting their clients in person and going to courts on a daily basis to even get matters for that matter. So there has been a huge rift in the organized part of the legal profession and the unorganized part of the legal profession. Almost it sounds like I'm talking about employment here, but there is a resistance that you would see from a larger faction of the legal community to stop virtual hearings. They want to go back to courts. They want to start physical hearings as soon as possible. But there is also this whole scare around the pandemic. And as I said, 1.3 billion increases our chances of getting infection. Like in every 10 people, you would find somebody who has had or is susceptible to getting an infection from the pandemic virus. So this is just a situation that we have been strongly grappling with. And I am hopeful that we continue to go on the virtual route. Of course, there is a lack of training, which now highlights the importance for pithy drafting, court craftsmanship in a virtual world. And also from the judge's side, there is need for a little bit of tech savvy, if I may say so, with no disrespect to anyone, but the attention span has gone down a lot in terms of a virtual hearing. And that is something where they also need to be probably trained.
Thank you very much, Arya. And I guess the virtual hearing, remote hearing is one of the most striking challenge for us dispute lawyers and judges and arbitrators alike. Moving to Hiroto in Japan, can you tell us a bit about your situation, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Hiroto. I'm now in Tokyo, and Tokyo's situation was quite similar to Korea, probably. The difference is that we had a large cruise ship, which was UK ship with lots of infected people. And we decided to say that that is not Japan. And it was actually in Yokohama, Bay Area, and they were there. However, we said that it is not Japan, and we didn't include them in the numbers of infected people from Japan. And that was in February. And in March, we saw some famous comedian or famous people, celebrities, starting to be infected or sadly die from the coronavirus. And at that point, we really realized that the situation is quite serious. So we knew about the situation in Europe. So we gradually prepared to face the lockdown. And in Japan, we had a lockdown or declaration of state of emergency from early April. However, we didn't have a legal framework to actually order people not to go to work. So it was declaration. However, stay-at-home order was voluntary. So each of the companies and so on, they just voluntarily kind of follow the guidance by the government to stay at home. And that continued for about 2 months. And with regard to law firms' reaction, it was quite different among law firms. My firm was quite strict. So during the lockdown, every lawyer needed some management approval in order to actually get into office. We need to explain to the management how seriously we need to get in office. However, in other firms, some firms had 20 or 30% people actually commuting to the office. And so the situation was quite different among the companies and the firms. And after the lifting of declaration of state of emergency, now we don't have any state of emergency declaration. However, still, there is a recommendation that stay at home as much as possible. And in that current situation, it is quite similar to Daniel's situation. Our firm is making lots of internal orders, like not to have client meetings, use web type meetings and so on. So the method to cope with current situation is quite similar, I believe. However, in other firms, in other Japanese firms, I heard that there is a firm that is kind of encouraging people to come to office and not to be too afraid of the virus. And that is in order to enhance or maintain the internal relationship, teamwork within the law firm. And that firm actually believes that is very crucial for the firm to continue to be strong. So there are a wide range of ideas about how to cope with this situation. And currently, what I see in Japan is that with regard to huge listed companies which have good resources, their commuting rate is something like 20 through 30%. And with regard to my firm, now we can go to the office without management approval, and probably 10% of people, maybe less, are commuting. And interestingly, people who have small kids, they would like to go to office in order to have quiet place. So they are commuting. And in some other firms, I see that almost 100% of the members are commuting and gathering in office as usual. Of course, they are taking certain measures, but the kind of commuting rate largely differs among law firms. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you very much, Hiroto, for this very interesting statistic on, the people still at home and those who want to come back to the office. Anne, can you please tell us a bit about the situation in France and in your company?
Okay, first of all, hi to everybody, those whom I can see and all my IPBA friends. I hope you're keeping safe, you and your beloved. So in France, the situation has improved, and at the same time, during the past few days, there has been an increase in the cases. So I must say that the situation and recommendations from our public authorities change a lot. But this is it. First of all, I would like to share with you 2 or 3 remarks and then tell you how I have experienced this crisis and what is going to be in the future regarding the topic working from home. So first of all, I can say that the health crisis, in my view, has not created new trends. It has just, in France at least, accelerated them when we are talking about working remotely. And I think, I deeply believe that it is very unlikely that there will be a step backward. However, I think we all agree when we say that nothing can replace human relationship and face-to-face relationship. And this is why we all hope that we'll be able to see each other in Shanghai in a few months' time. My second remark relates to our legal profession. I think we are privileged to have been able to work from home. So I would like to invite all of us to remind of all those who have not been able to do as we have done and who have put at risk their lives for us to live, to eat, and to be safe. My third remark is that within the legal professions, corporate counsel, lawyers, and so on, there are specific functions. I'm thinking of secretaries, I'm thinking of paralegals who may fear that, or who might fear that their functions might be outsourced. You know, I'm thinking of the IPBA. Rhonda and Yukiko have worked remotely for years and it works very well. But I think that we should also think within our respective organizations of all of these functions, and we should probably reassure or talk to those people who might fear for their specific jobs. Now, what's happening in France? Well, in my company, we have been asked, like in all of the companies, to work from home. The lockdown has been stopped, if I may say so, since last May. And what are the trends now? I think that, as I was saying, the trend is here. In my company, we are allowed to work remotely from home between 1 and 2 days. And it depends on the companies. I would just like to quote or to refer to one French company, which is a huge one. It is a car company, which you may have heard about. It's called Peugeot. Peugeot is very innovative. Peugeot have decided, the management, the executives have decided that from now and onwards, all the people who can work from home will do so at least 3.5 days per week. So the principle has changed. The principle since September in this company, employing several thousands of people all over the world. So of course, those who don't work in plants, but who have white-collar jobs, if I may say so. So within this company, 40,000 employees in the world now work remotely, at least 3.5 days a week. And why did this company choose to go in this direction? We all can imagine that it's a question of reducing costs for the premises, of following a trend, of responding to employees' expectations. But I think that also it's a way of, it's also a way of inviting people to work differently. When they come to the office, to the premises, it's not to open their computer, it's just to exchange, to socialize, to brainstorm, and to innovate. So it's really, really a very innovative company. And I would also last topic I would like briefly to focus on. It's the situation of women. We should all be very, very careful about our female colleagues, because working from home for them has resulted most of the time in a real increase in the day-to-day work. And I know that many men, many fathers share the domestic tasks between their spouses, their wives. But I think it's very important to keep in mind that the situation of women has not been so good, especially those who have very young children. So I think we should all keep that in mind for the future, to have a specific focus, and we should all care about their specific situation. So as a conclusion, and to join all that has been said in this topic, so in France, there is a real trend, it's increasing. We need, of course, to be careful about how to train people to use digital tools, but I think we're going to address specific issues regarding the management of the teams, KPIs, and so on and so forth. So very happy to have shared a few ideas with all of you, and I'm sure the IPBA will guide all its members respecting the different culture, but I think it's very important what Julie and your colleagues have decided to focus on. I think it's important to share some guidelines and practices between the IPBA members. So congrats for what you are doing and what you have decided to do.
Thank you very much, Anne, for these very important remarks. It's not only about working, in the office or from home. There is maybe a whole transformation of the legal professions and the different functions associated to it, and it's part also of the wider debate. And also thank you for drawing everyone's attention that the COVID may have impacted some groups in a more difficult manner than others, such as women in some instance. So now I'd like to invite everyone to participate in our first poll question. So if Rhonda can launch this first poll.
Yep, I'll launch it right now.
Thank you very much. So the first question is, what is, in your opinion, the biggest advantage of working from home? So first, it allows people to find their most efficient work routine and methods. 2, flexibility allows people to better balance the competing pressures in their lives. 3, it saves cost for the company and the individuals. 4, people are more efficient and productive. And 5, it expands the available workforce. So we'll give you just a few moments to respond.
Is there a result there, Rhonda?
Yep, I'll share the results now.
So interesting results. So the majority thinks that the biggest advantage of remote working is flexibility, allowing a better balance in our lives. And in second position, people being more efficient and having a more efficient routine. The cost saving is maybe less important in the view of most people, and then few think that people are more efficient and productive. So very interesting, and I guess we can come back on those results in the course of the interactive discussion.
Okay, so we are going to ask the panelists, we're going to cross-examine them in a number of topics, and I'm going to ask the panelists to answer in just a minute and a half because we're just falling slightly behind our schedule, and I will just hold up a finger when you're at 1 minute, so you've got about 30 seconds to go. If maybe one other panelist has a quick follow-on comment, you're very welcome to, but quick is like 15 seconds, please. Sorry to be a bit strict, but we just have a bit of material we want to get through. So we want to look first at the impact of all this on the management of the firm and the practicalities that we are all having to work with. So I'm going to start with Hiroto-san and ask him, he's head of the IT committee in his firm and led the response from an IT point of view. Hiroto, what were the sort of practical difficulties that you and the firm faced in transferring suddenly to have to work from home for all or most of your workers?
Right. We initially thought that, since we are just using computers and now we are doing works in emails and so on, so we initially thought it was not that difficult to transfer to working from home. And just bringing laptops to home and work from home, and that was it. However, starting that, we found some very basic issues, something like some staff members or some young lawyers, they do not have internet connection at home because they are using smartphones, and they were originally college kids, and they used to go to the college and use free Wi-Fi for accessing the internet. So that is not at all sufficient for doing work from home. So that was a kind of huge surprise for us. And next one was something like personal space. Japan does not have, huge residences generally, so everyone is having small homes compared to US or UK or other places. So it was kind of difficult for everyone to find a personal area that have confidentiality and also concentrate on the work. I think those were the initial findings. And some issues we found transferring to work from home situation.
Thank you. It sounds like you did a very good job keeping the firm going, though. The next question, Arya, at a sort of broader level, from your observation, what, from a management point of view, are some of the practical challenges that COVID threw up for us all?
So I can speak from an India perspective. There have been three significant things. Number one is that everybody had to suddenly upgrade to what technology they were using. And India doesn't really look very well at encryption. Encryption and digital signing technologies just swamped everyone. So law firms had to, from a management perspective, really invest in the tech frontline, which was really not a top priority for a lot of law firms. Number two has been the massive cost saving and setting up reserves. That has been a trend across law firms, the bigger ones, the smaller ones. And I'm not wrong when I say this, but either there have been partners who have earned zero remuneration and have decided that they won't take anything home, to salary cuts happening within the range of 35 to 50% for people at a principal and senior associate level. And to the extent that, yes, there is no clarity even in certain firms on whether these would be paid as arrears. Performance appraisals and all, that also has had a setback. And the idea is not to really pay, but the idea is to just, as a competitive market, maintain adequate reserves. And the third one has been, if I may say, at an interpersonal level, just continuing to have the team spirit and a sense of discipline has been one of the challenges. Again, this is all because it's virtual and it's really difficult to motivate, I think, the younger lawyers. And that should be the three difficult challenges for law firms in India.
Thank you. Those are some great observations. Thank you for sharing those. So, Anne, the next question is for you. In terms of KPIs and I guess, measuring effectiveness, what sort of recommendations and thoughts do you have in this work from home environment, please? Sorry, you've got you're muted.
Yeah, sorry for that. When we all work from home, what we see, what our colleagues see is the results. So I think that the first KPI, of course, is focused on results. This is my first remark. My second remark is that the colleagues, the hierarchy, the managers, the executives are also very sensitive to a soft skill, which is adaptability or flexibility. Because when you can just pop up into someone's room when you are at the office, it's very easy. The person is here, oh, can I come back in 1 minute? Okay. But when we work from home, it's very different. We don't want to disturb people. We send a text message to ask them if they are available, if we want to reach them. So I think flexibility is really a soft skill, which I would mention as a KPI for law firms and companies, both. And a third KPI, I think, is also the quality of the reporting. It has to be short and also it has to be adapted to each situation. And probably my fourth and last remark regarding KPIs, it's more linked to the way we interact each other. For instance, you as lawyers, practicing lawyers, I think it's very important from my point of view that you discuss that with your clients, because misunderstandings are not good at all. We all have to adapt each other. So you are not legal providers giving an opinion to your client. We work together. And if you have to adapt yourself and the way you work and the way you deliver, we also have to adapt ourselves. It's really a bilateral dialogue, work, partnership, cooperation. So these are briefly my remarks regarding your question on KPIs.
Thank you, Anne. So from Paris to Seoul, Daniel, you're an M&A lawyer. Can you talk about some of the impacts of all this on your practice and challenges such as confidentiality and so on? How has it all worked?
Sure, Mark. So we recently closed 2 cross-border transactions targeting other parts of Asia. Obviously, we're not able to travel with the client, so we relied heavily than in other transactions on the help of our friends at local law firms, as well as on virtual meetings. We have noticed, however, there are certain difficult issues which may be more efficiently handled and resolved through face-to-face meetings, unofficial interactions, etc., particularly when you're dealing with targets, counterparties from other cultures who are accustomed to different practices. So I guess we have managed to close the transactions successfully using virtual meetings, various high tech technologies. But we will have to see whether it's possible to completely replace physical interactions with technologies and these latest developments. Confidentiality is another issue that we should be concerned about in a remote working environment. We have not been able to find a good approach to deal with confidentiality issue. We simply have emphasized to the team members the importance of the the project, the confidential nature of the information that you may be dealing with, so that you have to ensure that your family members and other people who may have close access to your device are not given access to confidential information. So at this time, we have been simply relying on each member's integrity and discretion in keeping confidentiality of work-related information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So look, that's the first topic area. Now hand over to Julie in Singapore.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'd like to move to what I believe to be an important topic, which is managing the team in a remote environment. I certainly miss the daily interaction with my colleagues. Daniel, how did COVID-19 affect how you and your colleagues are working as a team?
So, I've mentioned that we have less opportunity. We're not having meals together. So we have less opportunity to interact with other members of the firm on an unofficial basis during the pandemic. I think this has had a greater impact to the junior members of the firm rather than those more experienced members of the firm. Working remotely does not seem to fully allow our junior members to learn from the job as effectively as they may have been working from the offices, working side by side with senior members of the firm. So I guess a chance for the firm to pass on the culture and values of the firm to the junior members is diminishing, and it's been somewhat more difficult to provide a fuller, more frank feedback to the to your junior colleagues. It generally appears that pre-pandemic physical interaction has been a more efficient and effective means of providing a learning experience to the junior members of the firm. So we will have to continue to see whether this new norm how this new norm would affect the training and learning experience of our junior members of the firm.
Thank you, Daniel. And Anne, you alluded to some of this already earlier, but what concrete advice would you give to maintain the team spirit and have a successful remote management?
Okay, so I don't know if any of you has attended a collective yoga course and seen your colleagues sweating or smiling. I think whenever it is possible, setting up specific moments to smile, to exchange, not only to work, but digital coffees. I think we have all experienced that. It can be a regular moment or 2 regular moments within the week. Those who can attend, very well. Those who can't, never mind. There will be other moments, first. Secondly, I think that a manager or a partner or a senior counsel has to be very careful about juniors. Juniors, it has been said before me. So I really subscribe to what has been said. Juniors need to be guided. They are very happy to have a yoga lesson, but they want to learn. They want to listen how to handle a difficult conversation. They want to receive feedback, as Daniel has just said. And I think also it's important to be careful about, within a team, those members of a team, whatever their age, who are more sensitive to being, or to a fear of being isolated. So I think we shouldn't hesitate picking up our phone and just inviting someone in particular to have a chat, to chat about, well, it can be a file, it can be, how are you doing? Are you okay? So those moments who were probably different, and which are different when we see our colleagues face to face, have to be set up again. It's not always easy when it is a virtual moment, but some people within a team require more attention than others. It's the same within a family. There are brothers and sisters who keep on very well, who are very autonomous, and others, they need more attention, more time. So I know that for a practicing lawyer, time is money, but the well-being of your colleagues is also going to generate money. So if your colleagues, if you feel they are not feeling very well, I think it's important, as far as you can, to find a moment to exchange with them. So these are my tips.
Thank you.
Last one. Sometimes, if it's possible, we should try and invite our colleagues to work more often within a team, maybe 2 or 3 people together. I know it's not always easy to charge them, your clients, but just let's try and think about that.
Thank you, Anne. And maybe to pick up on one of the points you mentioned, Arya, do you think there is an increased need for mental health awareness within the legal community due to this, face-to-face interaction, lack of real communications?
Thank you, Julie. Based on what I have seen during the last 6 months, there is an acute need for acknowledging and accepting that mental awareness is definitely a part of well-being, and more so for lawyers. I think working from home, while it gives you flexibility, I have seen people being overworked. I have seen people really struggling to actually manage different roles. It's not a clear-cut segregation. Okay, this is, if you're working from home, you are bound to have your personal life somewhere merging with your professional space, and more so for people who have been with families. At the same time, in India, it's a very common culture for young lawyers to actually stay on their own and manage things on their own, and they're not with their families. So there's this constant struggle where they have been constantly thinking, like, I have personally thought so much about my parents who are staying miles away from me and whether they're doing fine or not. So to be very candid and honest, I think India still does not recognize mental health and hygiene as a big issue. It's only in 2017 that we came up with a law, and definitely the legal profession comes with a lot of stress. So I have seen juniors really finding it hard to manage time or stay committed to timelines which have been set. And you really have to be sensitive in those issues. You cannot expect that everybody is just the way you are. Probably I have a better coping mechanism with stress and I can do the segregation, but not everybody can do it. So some of the innovative things that we have done when I think I need to really make somebody really stay focused on what they're doing is we have shared screens and revised agreements in real time. In our firm, we actually celebrate virtual birthdays. So I have received flowers and cakes getting delivered at my place, even though we are like at our houses. we've had virtual drink nights, and we pick up the phone and we make sure that we talk. We talk about not just work stuff, anything that we feel like. So there is always a senior person. So we have actually become closer. And I think we have therefore discovered that people have become open to accepting and acknowledging that it's not physical or, external sort of an ailment. It's something that they're struggling with and they need some time to cope better. And I think it's very important. It's just not the COVID pandemic phenomenon. I think this is a trend that needs to be boosted so that we have healthy working spaces, whether from home or office, and be more sensitized around it.
Thank you very much, Arya. This is indeed very important to take into consideration, especially this is here to last.
It's a really thoughtful comments. Thank you very much to each of you. So Rhonda, we're putting you back to work, and just add my thanks to Rhonda for all the work you put into setting up the technology for this webinar. So this is our second poll, and Rhonda will put the questions up on the screen. What's the biggest, or the question is, what is the biggest disadvantage of working from home? A, is it harder to build and maintain good culture? B, ultimately it is less efficient and productive. C, confidentiality, which has been mentioned a fair bit, is hard to maintain. D, management of the team is harder. Or E, training and on-the-job learning are harder. So that's the question, and those are the options, which hopefully will appear on our screen, and we can seek input from the 50-odd participants who have been listening to us all. Rhonda, is our poll going to work, or should we come back to it?
The poll should be up right now and people are voting. Sorry, did I not allow you to vote?
That's all right.
Sorry about that. I forgot to click one button, but I can make the announcements if you'd like. So far, 70% of the attendees have voted. 74%, 76% voted.
Any last minute votes?
It's slowed down, 80%. With 80% voted, shall I stop? It seems to have slowed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can share the results with everyone. Can the panelists see the results?
Yeah, so that's pretty decisive. So 43% of our participants saying training and on-the-job learning are harder. And then the next biggest disadvantage, or most recognized disadvantage, is it's just hard to build and maintain a good culture. So that's pretty serious. Culture and training are, according to us as a group, the biggest victims of working from home.
I think
So,
this is in line with what we've already discussed so far.
So our next topic that we wanted to talk to our panelists about and cross-examine them, interrogate them on, is just the relationship with the clients and the communication with the clients. How has all that been impacted by we've all been going through? So Hiroto, from your point of view, how has the lockdown, working from home and so on, affected your communication with your clients?
Apparently, face-to-face meeting, the number of face-to-face meeting has decreased drastically. And we now realize that we don't need to move around within Tokyo to meet people, and we can just have conversation over the phone. And that is quite sufficient. And at first, we had, or the clients had some difficulty to adapting to web meetings. However, recently I see that most of the clients now are experienced in doing web meetings, and they don't have any difficulty in joining such meetings and using the tools. So it's a nice thing that we can actually have meeting from home or anywhere, and actually not telephone conference, and we can actually see each other like this. So that is the huge difference I see with regard to the communication with the clients.
Thank you very much indeed. So Daniel, back to Seoul. From your perspective and experience, what's happened to client expectations? Have they been modified at all by the circumstances?
Sure. I echo Hiroto's comments. We have seen, decrease in the number of physical meetings and visits to the client sites. Obviously has made our lives a lot easier by allowing us to allocate our time more efficiently on other uses. We, however, found a drawback. Clients now understand that we are, available for virtual meetings and consultations at any time, wherever we are located at. Thus, we're seeing an increase in the number of requests for calls and virtual meetings after business hours and over the weekend. So this is an issue that we will have to tackle down the road as we manage the client's expectations and as the clients become more accustomed to the new normal environment, in my view.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So Anne, your role is different from the rest of us as an in-house counsel. So how did COVID, and of course your clients are often internal, mostly internal, and so how did COVID affect your role in your communication with your clients, and also I guess the different subsidiaries and around the world that you have to work with?
You're in mute.
You're mute again, sorry.
Sorry again. In France, we are rather careful about separating our private life and our business life. It's not always easy, but I think we have what you others, my colleagues, you would call socialist laws, but there is under French law a right which is called the right to disconnect from the digital tools, from the internet. I'm not sure that this right is always respected, but at least in French large companies, human resources, trained people, trained managers and employees know their right. And we have received recommendations such as, please avoid sending emails very early in the morning or very late in the evening. You can just prepare them and then send them during business time. I'm not saying that it's the case for all companies, especially smallest ones, but at least it gives you a kind of flavor of what we should try to tend to. And I think that corporate counsel should also be very careful about not requesting from their counsel opinions or videos or anything during the weekend. You know, that surprises me a lot, because when we all work from home, we can see that it's very difficult to distinguish or to separate private life from the business life. And I think really that, I don't know if it would be possible for all of you to touch that point or to address this issue with your clients. I know it's very sensitive and probably delicate. I don't know if your respective bars have issued guidelines about how to interact efficiently and respectfully with your clients. I don't know that, but I think that could be maybe something to be done. For instance, in my company, we are invited, it's not an obligation, but we are invited when we work from home under our signature or above, but whatever, it's not an issue. Or when we send messages to each other through Teams, we are invited to put a specific message. When we work from home, I can be reached from, let's say, 8:30 a.m. to 6:30, 7 p.m. It's an example, but it shows the people who interact with you that, okay, your business day is over. It doesn't mean that if you want to answer, you won't be allowed to answer, but it is each person's right just to switch off the computer. Once again, I know it's difficult for practicing lawyers, I know that, but maybe educating softly your clients or having a conversation with them about that, I think that might be, I know it's not an easy task, I know that. It's much easier for corporate counsel, for in-house.
Thank you, Anne. No, I must say, everyone I know finds they work harder during lockdown and when they're working from home. So I think you're absolutely right that somehow we have to manage the workload without the more natural barriers of being in or out of the office. So back to Julie.
Yes, thank you very much. We have just a few minutes left, but I wanted to take at least one question we received from the participant. And this question from Americo de Guzman. And it's related to the need of an actual physical office space. And his question is, what would be the effect, if any, of COVID-19 on the physical office requirements of law firm in your jurisdiction? Who would like to have a go?
I can volunteer for this.
Sure.
I am doing this webinar as I'm doing it in my office. And while a lot of places, they've downsized, they've scaled down, moved to smaller offices. But nonetheless, the need of a physical office is going to always remain for a lot of reasons. A lot of law firms have transitioned to cloud, but we are a very old school law firm where we still believe in our own servers being in our physical space for various confidentiality and sensitive issues. That's one part of it. But recently we have been working on a matter where it is impossible to actually transmit documents over email. That's the threshold of sensitivity and confidentiality that is expected. And definitely you need a physical space where you can come and, you know, review the documents, brainstorm work. And I think somehow the only difference, if I may say, the glaring difference is I personally feel or find the whole virtual space a little open for everyone, which also means that it is extremely important that confidentiality is taken care of at each and every level. A privileged and confidential legend is not going to suffice, is what I think. And therefore, I think a physical space is always going to be absolutely essential for independent practitioners and law firms.
Thank you, Arya. We're running out of time, so may I suggest that we quickly launch the last poll question.
Okay, I'll launch it now.
Please, Rhonda. So which do you think will be the most likely long-term adoption of remote working? A, most team members working remotely almost all of the time. B, most team members working remotely some of the time, for instance, 2 days a week. And C, most team members being required to work from the office almost all of the time. And we had obviously many more questions and issues to discuss with the panelists today, but maybe we could, you know, reconvene sometime, maybe in Shanghai to have another session on this topic, and maybe run the simple questions again in a couple of months' time to see whether the results are any different then. Has everyone voted?
Can the panelists see the poll this time? No? Okay, it's 84% and it seems to have slowed. Shall I end it and release the results? Yeah. Okay.
Please. Yeah. The vast majority thinks that we are not going to be back in the office full time, like the good old time, but it will be, you know, a part remote working environment in the future. But again, let's see how the coming months unfold and what the situation will be then. Mark, right. I think we need to conclude.
We need to conclude, but that leads into if almost 80% of people think that working from home is the new normal for at least part of the time. We're going to ask each of our panelists, and it'll be a quick tip on best practice for working from home. So it needs to be about 15 seconds or something. Just a reminder, we are very keen to keep this conversation going. So if any of the participants are interested in working on these issues as a working group, please let Julie or I or Rhonda know, and we'll keep this good discussion going on. So Anne, I know you've got another obligation, so perhaps I ask you first for your hot tip for working from home.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Before I share with you one or two tips, I want to thank all of you for this fantastic session, and Rhonda, whom we can't see, but as always, she has been exceptional. So one or two tips. Probably be yourself and work with pleasure. It's not always easy, but if you feel that you are in a bad mood or there is something which doesn't go very well, pick up your phone, invite one of your colleagues to talk with. Don't stay alone with your difficulties. That's a tip. And
thank you, Anne.
One, organize your day when you are at home as if you were at the office. I'm not saying wear your tie, wear your best dress, and if you want to do so, why not? So enjoy, and I think we'll all improve in the future because we are learning this new trend. And thank you all of you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Very, very good tips from my point of view. Arya, what do you have to offer us to do this more effectively?
I think remaining healthy is extremely important. I'm not sure if people have been doing it, but I have made a time schedule where I actually do all my Tabata yoga and stuff like that. And that has worked really well because I am a type A hyper person. So I need to dissipate all the active energy. So workout is definitely going to help you. And number two, dress up. I think Friday nights I dress up like I'm just stepping out and I pour myself a glass of wine.
I always wear my best dress at home as well. Hiroto.
Yeah, my tip would be to buy a huge display. It's not a cute thing to have in your home, but buying a big, nice display, good quality, you know, that improves life. So I would strongly recommend that.
Thank you. Daniel.
Yeah, my tip would be enjoy the flexibility and have a good time with your family members.
Excellent. Now, look, everyone's busy. The participants are busy. The panelists are busy. So we are going to wrap it up, even though we are a couple of minutes over, and I'm sorry for that. But we've had a lot of content and a lot of interesting things said. So I just really want to thank my co-moderator, Julie, who's been fantastic to work with, and Hiroto, Daniel, Arya, and Anne, who has had to shoot off, not many of us can say this, to go on national television in France. So I think we forgive her for shooting off to do that. So look, farewell. Thank you for participating. Big thank you for the participants for sharing this with us.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you from the
Thank you,
IPBA
everyone.
to all the panelists and all the attendees.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.